All right, so I think we have everything. I got you, got the pro plugger, got the questions. Okay, all right. Welcome to HortTube. My name is Jim Putnam. This is the Sunday garden question and answer video that I do on Sundays. You can ask questions down below this video if you have them, and you may want to make a comment, and I'll explain that later because comments will get you a chance to win a pro plugger, and there's a couple chances to win, so I'll talk about it later in the video. This is a tool that I've done several giveaways for. This is not a promoted video in any way. They sent me one, and I've used this tool quite a bit, but it's just a nice family-owned business that, and it's made in America. It's got a lot of uses in the garden. I'll explain that later. By the time you see this video on Sunday morning, it's going to be in the low 20s here. I'm shooting this on Friday, and it's a balmy 47 or something right now, probably, and cloudy. But we're supposed to get some rain and serious wind tomorrow, and then the temperature's supposed to crash. I imagine everyone watching this will be waking up Sunday morning to very cold temperatures, and I've got covers. I will have covers on a lot of things by then. There's a video for that I put up the other day, but as you're watching this on Sunday morning, it might be a little too late. Just letting you know. Okay, so let's get to some questions from this past week's video. Again, I just pick random questions from it, and I try to pick a few that I haven't answered before, or some variation at least of something that I've answered in the past that aren't exactly the same. So let's get started. I think I have about 20 written down for this week. Someone has a golden Oakland holly in a container, and it's lost a lot of leaves, and they're in zone 7A. I have a golden Oakland holly in a container in my front yard, and I'm in 7B, almost 8A, and it looks absolutely perfect. Obviously in zone 7A, that pot has probably frozen quite a bit more during the winter time. And you can get desiccation when that happens, meaning that the soil's frozen and the roots absolutely just cannot pump water up into the top of it. So if you get the roots frozen and then the wind blowing across the top of it, that's what happens on broadleaf evergreens. That's why you don't see a whole lot of broadleaf evergreens when you go to the northern part of the country. I mean, you see rhododendrons, but you'll see the rhododendrons, the leaves will curl into a little bit of a curl. The broadleaf evergreens that are up there are very well adapted to it, is my point. So, and so when you say the difference between 7A and 7B, how can it be that much? Also keep in mind, and my second thing I was going to talk about here is the zone map. The zone map gives us nothing but your average low temperature. So, so I'm in zone 7 just like they are. The difference between 7A and 7B is 5 degrees. The average low temperature during the winter is 5 degrees warmer in my area than it is theirs. That's all it's giving us, is the average low temperature. It's not actually giving us, summer heat, which can be an issue for plants. It's not giving us the difference between whether it's a dry summer, the air is dry, or it's humid like it is in my area, which is beneficial to the plants to have some moisture in the air. And the other thing it's not giving us is, think about, I did a consultation with somebody the other day on Long Island, and they're in zone 7A. Part of Long Island is zone 7A. It's surrounded by the ocean. So the temperature never goes that much lower than it does here, but their winters are a lot longer than mine. Their days are probably 30 minutes shorter in the morning and 30 in the evening. It's at least an hour shorter days, maybe more than that, being a 12-hour drive, 11-hour drive, or whatever it is to the north. So, a lot of times this zone map isn't telling us everything we need to know. Some of you in zone 7, if you're much further north, have much longer, deeper winters. And so, unfortunately, that's just the way it is. And all that zone 7 is telling you is, I don't know if I'm going to get this light on me again like I did last week. I'm shooting a little bit earlier. All that zone map is telling you is my average low temperature and your average low temperature. It's not giving us much more than that. So if I'm in zone 7A and I'm a little further north, I'm going to treat that differently than if I was in zone 7A and I was in Greensboro, North Carolina, and my days are literally an hour longer. And my daytime temperatures are likely several degrees warmer than they are up there. Just throwing that out there, that the map, unfortunately, is very far from perfect. And then we have microclimates within our areas as well. So, if you had it tucked up more to the house, would that have been better? Don't know. Is the wind blowing on it? Lots of those kinds of things can take an effect. Sometimes if you overprotect them, you don't give them enough light, and the plant does still need sunlight. So, a lot of things can play into it. So I just wanted to explain that, though, about the zone map that gets so confusing. When somebody says your zone 7's a lot different than my zone 7, yeah, there's a reason for it. Your shorter days make a big, big difference. Okay, somebody asked me about getting floppy plants from nurseries right now. Things are not rooted into the pots as well. And this happens anytime there's an explosion in growth in, either housing or this particular time around. Heck, we've got housing, we've got, the new gardeners, because of COVID, and landscapers are just as busy as they could possibly be. The nurseries can't keep up, and so they are sending out plants that are probably slightly less established. Hard to blame them for taking the money, honestly. They are farmers, and nobody's going to feel bad for them when it's the other way, and it will definitely go the other way. But something like a Loropetalum or an Abelia is a good example of a plant that a lot of times will be a little bit floppy if they're not well established in the containers. Just plant them and let them be, and they will fill out that other direction. Don't start overthinking it. Don't start overstaking them, pulling on them all the time, trying to dig them out and replant them, and all the other things that will make you end up loving the plant to death. Unless it's like a tree. Obviously, you got to stake a tree to keep it straight. Or if it's some sort of upright evergreen that really needs to be going vertical. Other than that, if it's just a round little ball of a shrub is what it's going to become, whether that be 2 feet tall or 6 feet tall, just plant it and leave it alone. And it'll fill out the other direction. Maybe put the growth toward away from the sun so that the sun will draw, so the sunny side of the plant will be the side that fills out. If you planted it the other way around, then it's within the realm of possibility. It'll just continue to be a little bit lopsided. So there you go. Let's see. Somebody asked how to ask Jim a question, and in the process asked Jim a question. That's where you ask them, right where you put the question, right below the video. You can ask your question. Let's see. Somebody had trouble with their Rudbeckia dying every year. So black-eyed Susans and coneflowers, they had talked about the amount of organic material that they had in the bed and that kind of thing. Keep in mind that prairie flowers or prairie plants tend to like a bit of a lean soil. And so, not completely lean, but not as much organic material as other things. So when you're planting some of those native prairie plants, keep that in mind. My coneflower, my echinacea out by the road, which was planted in the Hell Strip right next to the sidewalk last year, or right beside the asphalt and the curb is the word I'm looking for. That thing was nearly 6 feet tall. If you guys saw my summer tour video last year, I had a coneflower out there that was as tall as me. The ones in my backyard garden space where I've done a bit more soil prep were definitely not as big and not as vigorous. So the one out there actually that seemed like it was being abused was slightly better. So, not every plant loves a big bag of black soil. Some plants actually just like to be stuck in our native soil and slightly underloved. So there you go. That's likely what it is. Somebody asked me about using mulch glue, or I think that the one that I've seen at Lowe's is like mulch lock or something, where you spray some material on top of your mulch to keep it from floating away, making it more of a solid feature. I've never used it before, so I don't have any experience with it. I've been lucky that the houses I have owned and lived in have been fairly level. So I have landscaped a lot on places with slopes. In fact, more people probably hire landscapers that have sloped spaces than them flat spaces, just because they're tired of working with it. Definitely, you want to use something like triple shredded hardwood, and I said that in the mulch video that I put up this week, or pine straw, something that wraps in itself a little bit. If you're using any of that wood chip or any of those dyed mulches that you get, it's all wood material, and it's all about the same size, and it floats like crazy. Every time I see that brown mulch, black mulch, red mulch, it's just floating all over the place. So I think that's that can be part of the problem. Also, if you have slopes, it's best to just kind of, if you can, terrace them. And not terrace them with, my version and my vision of terracing something is not 6x6 timbers or fancy concrete stones, or super uniform. Mine is using boulders and natural materials. And I think you'll see more of that coming up. I'm starting a video series next Saturday at a friend of mine named Jeremy's, who does all the stonework at Plant Delights at a Juniper Level Botanic Garden. You saw the videos I was doing with Tony. If you saw any of the stonework that was in those videos, Jeremy's the one that's doing that. And you're going to see some stonework from him and what's possible in a suburban garden using interesting stones. That's coming up. Okay, let's see. How do I decide which perennials that I do, and annuals that I do from seed? I will literally try any of them from seed if I can. The only annuals and perennials that I don't do for seed are just ones that aren't available. So the latest and the greatest annuals and perennials that are patented or protected in some way, those aren't going to be available from seed. And then there are some sterile cultivars that don't produce seed or viable seed. But everything else that I can do from seed, I would like to do from seed, for the expense of it, and just because I like it. I mean, it's fun to take a seed and then see a flower on it during that season. See how vigorous of a plant that you can get out of it in the same season. So, my deciding on it is literally, is it available as a seed? That's the answer to that. Okay, so let's talk about the giveaway real quick. I'm putting it right in the middle of the video here. This is a Pro Plugger. This tool has a little kickstand on it, or a little stand on it here that you press your foot down on, and it pulls plugs out of the ground. I think it says on the tag that he originally invented this to try to get garlic out of zoysia grass and wild onions. So you could take the plug out, get the actual bulb out, and then dispose of it. But then it's got a ton of other uses. So if I'm planting my lettuce seedlings, if I'm planting bulbs, if I'm weeding, if I want to move some of my zoysia grass from an area that's really well established to a thinner area to let it fill in, or if you had Bermuda grass, or Bermuda probably grows fast enough, but if you had centipede, something like that. It's a great tool. This is my third one. They've sent me one each time they've upgraded it, and this latest upgrade, it has a hexagonal end on it. So you don't have to pull. So this is a hollow tube right here. When I step down on it, it goes down in the ground. I guess that's probably about 6 inches, and that plug stays in it. And then I can get another plug and another plug, and it actually fills this tube up. By having this hexagonal end on it, a different shape, it's looser in the tube. So when you turn this thing over and empty out the plugs, they slide out much easier apparently. I have not used this one yet. I can't wait to use it. If you make a comment below this video, which can be a gardening question or whatever, it doesn't matter. It can be hello Holly. Doesn't matter what it is. You're entered to win, and if you'll go over to my Instagram at HortTube, if you don't follow me over there on Instagram, follow me over there, and make a comment below the photo that'll look some sort of cheesy photo, like that on Instagram. Make a comment below that photo. That'll give you a second chance to win. So there's 2 being given away. I'll do a drawing from this one and a drawing from there, and they'll send them out. And at some point you'll see me use that because I always find a use for it. Maybe I'll do a local giveaway for one of my older 2 in the next few weeks. So let me know if you're interested in being part of that. That'll be your comment. There you go. Okay, somebody had how to stop cats from pooping in the garden. I don't know if these are your neighbor's cats or your cats or whatever. If it was my neighbor's cats, I got a solution for that. I got a cat killing machine right here. Not that I let her kill cats, but she would if I let her. She does not allow cats near the property. You never seen a 13-year-old dog prance more than when she sees a cat. She sees a cat on the walk. It is like, that's a great day for her. But yeah, I think a dog is the best way to keep the cats out of your garden. If it's your neighbor's cat, which I don't take kindly to. I mean, I'm not a fan of somebody else letting their pet onto my property. I know people watching this you're probably maybe one of them that does it. It may not like to comment. I don't really care. If it's your pet, it belongs on your property. Unpopular opinions by Jim. Okay, let's see. Let me see. Somebody has pansies in a container and they look tired at this point. I talked about in the little tour video that I did this week, if you live in an area where you can have pansies in the winter, I would put violas in your containers, because the elevated container stays more frozen, just like we talked about with that golden Oakland holly earlier. So keep that in mind. If the more the pot freezes, the less your pansies are going to perform. So in the future, do violas in the container. For now, yeah, hit them with the fertilizer and get them growing. And you still got, a good amount of time here where the pansies will recover. But overall, violas perform better in containers. Okay, somebody's got some Shindo Viburnum in the shade and they're losing lots of leaves. I would imagine ultimately they're probably going to grow out of this. They will get some leaf spot issues on them when they're young and they're not happy, and they can be a little bit thin. I would go out there and I'd prune them hard and fertilize them and see what happens in this third year. I've said, and I may have said in my original Shindo Viburnum video, that plant's kind of odd. I'll tell you it grows 3 or 4 feet a year, but it doesn't do that until the 3rd or 4th year typically. That's not to mean that all Shindo Viburnums do that. Sometimes you'll plant one and it'll grow quickly, but a lot of those fast growing plants will sit there for a little while and then they'll take off, but some others don't. But I would cut some of the thinner part of the top of that plant off, hit them with the fertilizer, make sure they're well mulched, and they may be slightly drier in a shady space. I don't know what's creating the shade, obviously. Okay, somebody's hydrangea paniculata is losing leaves in the summer, but it still bloomed. That could be overwatering or underwatering. Obviously, I don't know whether you're somebody who loves your plants to death with water, but either one of those things could create a situation. Keep in mind, plants are going to bloom. I've literally seen dead azaleas bloom. Once the buds are on there, they're going to open them, and then after the flowers were done, there wasn't a leaf on it. So a dying plant can still bloom. But like I say, I don't know what type of gardener you are, but if they're overwatered, certainly that can be an issue. And obviously, if they were too dry would probably lend itself toward not blooming though. So I'm thinking they're probably overwatered. Somebody asked me to do a video on cold hardy palms. That's actually one of the next videos I'm going to do with Tony Avent a little later in the spring. So you'll see that. I've got 2 in my landscape. They've got a bunch there that we'll walk through, and we can take a look at some of the cycads as well. Somebody asked if mowing to kill unwanted plants will work, like English ivy and those kinds of things. Yeah, putting traffic on them as much as anything. So yes, mowing them off repeatedly should help. And then the other thing is foot traffic. I mean, a lot of these plants just don't like foot traffic, but I think you'll find that very difficult with liriope to kill it with a lawnmower. But other ground cover things like vinca and those kinds of things probably can be killed with repeated mowing. Just put the mower as low as you can go. Unfortunately, sometimes when you're running it through those spaces, the first time there might be rocks and things like that under there. So, be careful with that. So let's see. Somebody asked me my opinion on coconut coir. Yeah, coconut coir is like a replacement for that people are using for peat moss. It's just a coconut husk refined into a product that's very similar, has a very similar water wicking ability to peat moss. A lot of people, including myself, are trying to use less peat moss. Although the peat moss industry does have a spin, like of course every industry has a spin to protect themselves, but that they say that the Canadian peat bogs are actually getting bigger, despite the fact that they are mining the peat moss, and that may in fact be true. But keep in mind, that is carbon storage. It's good that the peat bogs are growing because that is storing carbon, and we are in the world where carbon storage is important. So pulling out peat is obviously taking stored carbon and putting it out into the into the world. So yes, we need to be using less peat moss. one of the alternatives people have come up with is just using this coconut core. It's false environmentalism. There's a lot of this. I mean, you know, we have lots of false environmentalism. You can't take a product that's grown in the tropics, refine it, dry it out, wrap it in plastic, literally wrapped in plastic, and ship it on a ship across the world and open it up and feel good that I'm saving the world. You know, that's just not true. They should just be using that coconut core as mulch around those trees or something else down there in the tropics where they can use it, whatever they need to use it for, but it does not need to be sent up here. It's not real environmentalism. As a product, yeah, I'm sure it's great. I'm sure it works great for germinating seeds and doing all the same thing that peat moss does. But I'm shifting to compost. If I need the mix to be slightly lighter, because compost can be heavy, I'm using some pine bark or something like that. That's a local product for me, right here in North Carolina. But anyway, like I say, I mean, the peat industry does have a different spin on this than I do. Yes, the peat bog, great. The peat bogs are growing. They need to grow. Okay, let's see. Somebody said, I've been talking about a fence project for a year that hasn't started, and it actually is, in fact, made some progress here in the last couple weeks. And another one is about the metal shed that I'm converting to a greenhouse. I actually have, well, it's not out here. It was out here the other day. I actually have 2 pieces for that just came in the mail. And I have the lumber that's going around the bottom on the driveway. It was left over from the fence project that I did in the front garden. But this is just about to start. And you're 100% right. The world, because this channel has grown, I get an email opportunity probably twice a day, to go to this place to shoot a video or go to that place to shoot a video or this or that. And it definitely has distracted me from finishing some of the projects that I wish I had in the rearview mirror here. And I'm definitely concentrating on that this spring. Okay, somebody asked me, okay, so they're in Wilmington, North Carolina, Zone 8A, and they want to know if it would be a good idea to put a saucer magnolia in their south-facing front yard. That's totally fine. It'll be fine down there. Those things are heat tolerant, cold tolerant. They're every kind of tolerant. I just don't know why you would. Down in Wilmington, there's really no reason that you would need a deciduous magnolia, because you can grow our southern magnolias, or you can grow one of the banana shrub hybrids like that. Magnolia serendipity that I've shown a couple times over at the Ralston, and Stella ruby magnolia, of which there's one right over my right shoulder out here in the landscape. I think you have a lot of opportunities to grow some interesting evergreen magnolias down there. But yes, if you're drawn to that plant, go for it, no problem. I did that video over at it was kind of funny because I got a couple reactions where people that don't like deciduous magnolias kind of said something down at the bottom. I love deciduous magnolias over at the Ralston. I don't love deciduous magnolias in my landscape. Most of them get pretty big, and they're going to eat a lot of the space that I have. But I love going over there and seeing that giant collection of them in the spring. So I wasn't so much promoting them as I was, just showing, hey, here's a place where you can come and look at them without having, a 35-foot tree in your yard. Let's see. Somebody said their mountain snow Pieris down on the Gulf Coast looks fantastic. Mountain snow, which I have back here on the back, that one actually was selected for heat tolerance. That probably is why it's performing so well down there. Let's see. Somebody said their gardenia, I think it was Climb's hardy gardenias, are turning a light yellow color. Wanted to know if that was a mineral deficiency. It's generally an iron deficiency, but most of the time and here comes that stripe again. Most of the time it's actually caused by overwatering again. This is one of those, you can get deficiencies, phosphorus, potassium, iron, whatever it is. You can get those deficiencies based on root damage that's happening under the soil. So sometimes those things can happen from animals chewing the roots, overwatering, underwatering. But my guess is if it went from green for a while and it started to yellow, it may be that it stayed too wet for some period of time. That'd be my guess. I'm guessing at these things. I'm getting 3 sentences, with an opportunity to guess. Somebody wanted to know about that metal shed. Again, the metal shed that I had taken the skin off of will finally be a greenhouse in the next couple weeks. I got 2 pieces. I wish I had it out here. I got 2 pieces. I showed it. If you watch my covering video, I used it to cover that palm back here. That was one of the pieces from it. And then, like I say, I've got the lumber to go around the bottom of it. I'm actually going to do a video showing making a potting bench, because I built several at the old at my nursery that I think worked pretty well. So I'm going to put a potting bench in there. Anyway, more promises from Jim. Somebody asked me about my camera gear. I'm filming this with a Canon R5. It's not an inexpensive camera. Oh my gosh. I like it, and then because it's so crispy and it's very forgiving and more sun than my Canon 80D was. So there's some forgiving things. I think it's a little bouncy in the corners when you see this camera moving around, you know, and now you're all going to pay attention to it. So there's something, it's got a stabilizer built in, and the lens is stabilized, and I don't know if they're functioning together very well, but it seems, honestly, it's got more stabilization than my last camera. Seems less stable. I do have some other ways to stabilize it, and I just don't like them. But so I absolutely love this camera. Everything is super crispy. The lighting is generally much better than what I had in the past, but again, and I'm not an expert with the camera. You know, I probably have more camera than I need, and more camera than anybody needs to start a YouTube channel. You can start a YouTube channel with a, you know, with a GoPro tomorrow, or your phone. I mean, this, you know, my Pixel right here probably takes as good a video as almost anything does. So you don't need all that, but that is a Canon R5, and it will shoot up to 8K video. What the heck am I going to do with 8K video? I have no idea. Okay, somebody asked me if they should prune their Mahonia after flowering, and I think it was the I can't even remember what Mahonia. They said I pruned mine after it flowered. I just, you know, the spent flowers I don't particularly like. It wasn't what was it? It was Marvel. It was Marvel. I haven't seen Marvel seed itself. It does produce little berries, but I haven't seen it seed itself, so I'm thinking it needs to be cross-pollinated with something that doesn't exist here in my area. So I haven't seen it seed itself, but some of the other Mahonias, like Mahonia bealii, are very seedy. And so if you had Mahonia bealii, you could save yourself and, you know, that noxious weed from producing seed by cutting off the spent flowers after they're done. There's a recording limit on this camera, and it actually just caught me. The last question I'll answer for this week is on knockout roses that have some witch's broom. That is actually Rose Rosette, and if I go through this neighborhood, I should take a Rose Rosette tour. You won't believe how many roses in this neighborhood have Rose Rosette. Those roses need to be pulled out immediately. Cutting them back won't change anything. Everybody that has Rose Rosette needs to get the roses out as quick as possible. And that is the answer that no one wants to hear. Doesn't matter if it's not the answer you don't want to hear. You want to hear. It's the truth. That disease is spreading very rapidly. It's spread by an aerified mite. So basically, the wind blows this mite over to the next rose. The one thing I do know is that if you see Rose Rosette in your roses, please go and remove them, bag them up, get them off your property, and hopefully save someone else's roses that are near you. So thank you guys for watching. Make a comment down below for a chance to win a Pro Plugger on YouTube below this video, and then go over to Instagram at HortTube and make a comment below this silly photo and for another chance to win. Thanks for watching.